was originally going to repeat the 3 types of horror here, but if you want that analysis, you can go back to the first video made on the first Fear and Hunger game, because this is sort of a continuation of that video. I also wanted to say real quick, I had no intention of making a follow-up video for the first Fear and Hunger video I made first, but 3 things made me reconsider. 1. The video did really well, for me at least. 2. I thought that there'd be no way that the second Fear and Hunger game would be nearly as good as the first one, but after I played it for about 2 or 3 days straight, I realized I was wrong and it was just better. And then 3, building on the first point, I decided to make a whole new channel for this video essay style videos, so if you're watching this on Pugzer or Pugzer 2, I welcome you to the video. Fear and Hunger 2 Termina is a game made by a Danish developer known as Miro Havernine, and man, what a depraved individual he is. I mean, these types of horror games can only come from a both seriously artistic and equally disturbed mind. I mean, look at him. After playing the first Fear and Hunger, I didn't think that the first game could be topped, so I put off playing Fear and Hunger 2 Termina. I will just be saying Termina from now on, as long as I could, because I thought it would ruin the first game for me. Think Boruto and Naruto. I was wrong. It's better. I want to follow the structure a little bit of the first video, so before we get right into the actual playthrough, I want to say what makes this game a disturbing horror game, and not just a normal horror game. I go over the types of horror games here normally, but if you want to see my 3 classifications of horror games in my head, you'll have to watch the first video. The themes of this game are perhaps not as taboo as the first, but they seem kind of more real. There's a constant reminder of war in this game, and this game no longer takes place in the Middle Ages, but around the 1940s, so I mean, there's World War II stuff everywhere. The references here are kind of on the nose, with Bremen being like the Germans, which is, they're Nazis. These guys are Nazis. And if you can see how this war has affected the location of the game it takes place, it's horrible and kind of real. This game doesn't delve too much into alien feeling stuff like Fear and Hunger 1 does, or the old god stuff, but it feels more like how the world has been affected by these kind of things, more than like actually delving into their realm like in the first game. That doesn't mean there isn't really any alien stuff in this game. There's parts where you can pretty much flip the scenery in certain locations and go to one of the old gods' territories, and it's every bit as awful as you'd think. And we'll talk more about that later, but first let's get into the art. This game, in my opinion, has more disturbing art than the first. Because what did Fear and Hunger 1 have that was really disturbing? I mean, there's a couple things, like the Harvest Man. That's creepy and all, but like every single contestant's moon-scorched form is worse than that, and we'll get into what that means here in a bit. But for now, let's talk about 3 enemies that disturb me the most. The ones that come to mind are the Centaur, the Rat Hag, and the Rontiel. And I know I said I wouldn't mention Moonscorched here, but one of these especially unnerves me, and this one's called the Weeping Scope. Which you might say, hey, that doesn't look that out of the ordinary for this game. But the concept of it is that it cries every once in a while, and without spoiling too much, it's pretty much a PTSD-ridden soldier that is stuck crying and shooting and nothing else. Then let's talk about the Flipped Worlds art real quick. These places have this horrible feeling to them, like everything in them you can almost make out, but not quite. Have you ever seen one of those images that are supposed to simulate what it's like to have a stroke? Like everything you look at, you should know what it is, but it's like familiar, but it's just like slightly off and you can't make it out quite. It's also accompanied by horrible music. Which is a great segue to my next point here. The sound design, just like Fear and Hunger 1, is extremely loud, but only when it has to be. Otherwise, it's kind of quiet, eerily so. There's not many jump scares, however, as someone who never gets hit by jump scares really anymore, due to me being on the internet during like the creepypasta age and the scary maze game and all that, I got hit by 2 very specifically in my first playthrough. The first one we'll talk about pretty soon, due to it being really early in the game, but the second one I just wanted to show real quick. You're in this basement relatively early in the game, and the enemies don't make noise when running at you, almost ever in this game. Hell, in this series, really. However, just in this one room, it happens, and my reaction is just me getting really fucking freaked out. Jesus fucking Christ, that scared the shit out of me. Just a loud lady screaming. It got me so good the first time, I'll commend the game for that, because I usually don't get hit by jump scares anymore. Now, the part I like talking about the most, because it's totally subjective and no one can tell me wrong, is the music. No one can tell me what the music means necessarily. It's completely subjective, and I like to insert my own little thing here. There's a few tracks in this game that are better than all of the first games combined. Whoever composes these tracks is so artistically depraved, and I love it. I'm not going to linger here for long because I could talk about every track, but there's three I find especially amazing. Let's go in order of you hearing them. Closing Madness is, first of all, aptly named. This one plays in the aforementioned flipped areas that we were talking about. This track just has something in the distance being hit, like something metallic over and over. And then every few seconds there's this short broken melody. Then near the end there's this really mechanical sounding scream, which makes sense if you know a lot about this game. And the sound is just straight from Slender pretty much. It makes me feel like I'm going insane, but I know I'm going insane, and I can't stop myself, and I'm just trying to delay the inevitable. The next one is Breath of the Moon. This one kind of reminds me of the track in the last game called The Four Apostles. It exudes danger and not to something natural. It feels like I'm being chased by some horrible thing never meant to be witnessed by human eyes. The last one I want to talk about is, in my opinion, the one that really gets my blood rushing most and makes me feel rattled to my core. Relentless plays in a very specific flipped area, and it is horrific. It is like the first track we talked about, but ramped up. It's filled with screams that both sound mechanical but also almost human, but not quite, with a weird Ratchet and Clank sounding melody over it. Then about halfway through, it completely changes. It becomes a very loud, fast, poorly played violin, along with a lowering note that makes you feel like you're the prey of something, not because it wants to eat you, but something's forcing it to chase you. Okay, now that we have all the introductory stuff out of the way, let me give you a small premise to get you hooked. This game takes place in the same universe as Fear and Hunger 1, with all the same gods, old and new, along with a couple new ones. The main goal here is not to get to the bottom of the dungeon to rescue someone like the first game, but to go to the center of a war-torn town to get to a tower. This game draws heavily from Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. People regard Majora's Mask as something straight out of a nightmare, and a horribly oppressive atmosphere for a kid's game, quote-unquote, as well as some really heavy themes for Zelda. It's like a really depraved Majora's Mask, which is already really fucked up. Almost exactly. I know I don't like to talk about difficulty, but Majora's Mask was always extremely hard to me. Having a time constraint in a game bothers me. It's just like a nagging feeling. I've beat Majora's Mask, and it's coincidentally the only Zelda game I've beaten, and this has the same feeling of a looming threat of a time limit overhead, both figuratively and literally, with the moon. In both Fear and Hunger and Majora's Mask, it is constantly there to remind you of the time limit. I mean, they even look similar. Look. So what happens when you put the brutal difficulty of Fear and Hunger together with the oppressive time limit of Majora's Mask? Something just plain unfair feeling at times. In a good way. The odds are stacked against you more than ever. If you thought Fear and Hunger 1 was barred, ooh boy. Alright, let's get into it finally. Instead of the 4 starting classes like in the first game, you have 8. At the time of writing this, at least. A doctor, who has the use of magic that the modern age condemns in favor of modern medicine. A mechanic, who grew up in a war-torn nation and learned to use her surroundings to make her life a little easier. A magician, who is guided by a familiar face, or head, to find out the old god's secrets. A botanist, who, although doesn't have the use of her legs, it might be a blessing in disguise. A reporter who wants to get to the bottom of everything going on in the city and why it changed. A boxer who is very good with his fists, but not much else. A PTSD-stricken war veteran, despite only being 18. But he starts with a gun, which is good. And last but not least, Marina, who is heavy into occultism, which may come in handy when you're dealing with old and forgotten gods. They might add more people eventually, but who knows. Despite who you pick of these 8, you will start on a train, heading to Preval, a centrally located city of the war. However, there is a current truce, so it should be relatively peaceful. Everyone on this train has a reason to go here, however, some people on the train are just passing through. While it's still a while to go, you take a nap. You sleepily awake to a girl in a pink dress. She'll lead you further into the train. You keep going and you notice luggage lining the walls. If you keep going, you'll notice something will be off. The luggage has been built up so much, and now the luggage itself is the walls of the train. If you keep going, you'll be met with this weird flipped area, where this horribly sickly looking man is waiting. His back skinned, but only his back. He'll yell at you to come with him and make these weird cubes. You can either fight him or go with him and do as he says. Make cubes. Either way, you'll see the girl in pink again. If you're playing as the botanist, she'll say that this is her sister, but she won't talk to you no matter what. Now, whether you fight the skin man and loss, or you follow the botanist's sister, no matter what, you'll end up in the Hall of the New Gods, and be pulled out really fast. You'll be teleported to the top of a tower with the moon staring at you. A masked man named Perkle will tell you that he saved you from there. He said I was a close one, and pretty much he doesn't want you dead. Yet. He tells you that Termina is close. You ask, what is Termina? He tells you that Termina is pretty much a battle royale, not the Fortnite kind, but more of like a Hunger Games kind. There are 14 contestants, and no matter what, only the last one standing is allowed in this tower. However, you only have 3 days to do it. Only the last one standing is allowed to enter the tower. Well, to break immersion for a second, this is just dripping with Majora's Mask references. The guy in the mask, the moon with the face looming in the distance, the tower, him calling the festival Termina, the 3-day time limit. There's just so much. I don't have a problem with it, but I guarantee before making this game, he binged Majora's Mask. Anyway, back to the action. You wake up. It was all just a dream, right? The whole thing, the flipped world, the skinned guy, the moon, the tower. It was a dream. Right? You can walk around the train, which seems to be stopped, but no one's here. You can find a map and a combat manual, which, by the way, I didn't know this was even here, which is an essential piece of the game until 3 hours in. You can walk out of the train. It's stopped for some reason. Everyone is out here. The 8 class people, as well as a businessman, a chef, a Bremen lieutenant who runs away immediately, a mustachioed gentleman, a mobster-looking guy, and a goth girl stalking around here somewhere. No one knows why the train is stopped, and everyone's confused. Everyone finds out they all saw the same dream, with the moon, the Termina, all the same. Once the mechanic says there's no way to start the engine again, despite nothing being wrong with it, people immediately just start walking to the city. It's not that far, besides you can see that tower, it's already really close. It's only a few miles to the city, and there's several ways in, but I'm just going to describe my journey. There are tons of plants here in the forest, all of which can be used for a myriad of things. You can go either up and to the right or down to the left. I chose to go to the left. Be careful, there's a guy in these woods with a gun that only shows up some of the time, which I discovered in one of my later playthroughs, and it scared the shit out of me. Here's that other jump scare I was talking about. Jesus fucking Christ. Eventually you'll find a few specks of blood, and when you follow them, you'll find a bunch of dismembered arms. The businessman will find you too, and he'll freak out. You both are mortified. There's not much you can do here, so you just continue forward. You see a nice house with a goat out front. There's a guy out front, too. Maybe he knows what's going on. A man naked except for all of a trench coat will rush down the man and cut off his arms and kill him. He will scream, "Termina is upon us!" You might be able to kill him and take his axe, or he can run away. Either way. Either works, but either way you should run into his house. There's a few things in here that you should grab. There's tons of items in here that'll make your journey a little easier. But specifically, you want to grab the broken glass on the floor, which seems useless at first. You can explore more and find some more things like a save point, but be careful. Every time you sleep and save, you advance 1/3 of the day. So you get a total of 8 saves, unless you find a really rare book that can act as a save point once. And if you know Majora's Mask, things are locked and unlocked depending on the time of the day and what day it is in general. Some contestants might die, some might go crazy, or worse if you're not fast or slow enough. Every playthrough will be slightly different, so like I said, I'll be describing my playthrough. Yours will 100% be different. I digress. You take the broken glass and you keep going. From the woodsman's cabin, you can either go further into the forest or into town. In our case, we want to go further into the forest. This place seems familiar. Now the dogs again! Once you get through the headless dogs, you'll find a bunker. Weird. You can go down in here and possibly even find a party member if you're lucky. If you go down here, you can wander around and find a couple gas cans that turn on a generator. However, while you're here, you can hear a sawing noise. This is Needles. He just cut off the head of the businessman. 13. This is Needles. He just cut the head off the businessman, and you're going to fight him. This guy is unbelievably hard early on. That's why we picked up the glass earlier. The best way that I can find to kill him is to just throw the glass at his face as soon as you can. If you get a hit with it, he'll be blinded, and then every turn after, he will miss almost 100% of the time. If you don't do this, he'll hit you with his flail of hypodermic needles, which is such a fucking cool weapon, by the way. And killing him will give you some more hypodermic needles, which if you're the mechanic, you can make a sword combined with this needle and make a poison sword, which is like one of the best weapons in the game. However, if you don't kill Needles now, he'll show up again later and be a nuisance, so now's the best time to take care of him. After you take care of him, the generator's on, you can find this elevator. Taking this elevator down, you can find a strange machine and an eagle-shaped key. You can turn on this machine and take the key. There's a symbol on the ground here, one for the moon god, rare. Using this, you can be transported to his flipped realm again. Now, this is real. Now, where the machine you turned on a second ago, it is replaced with this strange flesh machine. Let's just get out of here and not think about that. Leaving the bunker the way you came, you can find the Bremen lieutenant again. He says you got the key for him, and he's happy for you. He wants you to find the other one, too. Then he cheerfully says he'll kill you later, and he leaves. Well, with no other way to go, you go back towards the woodsman's house and go the other direction. You're now in the outskirts of the city. You can come across people here that seem not quite right. And if it's nighttime, they'll just stare at the moon and do nothing. Their bodies are slightly off and they're burned. They seemingly have lost their mind and are out for blood. Something is really wrong here. These are moon-scorched people. They're tainted by the moon's glow and have gone insane, and their bodies are now burned and twisted. You can explore around here all you want and find all the supplies you need, as well as meet with some of the contestants. If you want to kill them here, you can. But why would you do that? You're a nice person. The main important thing here is the large mansion. It's clearly the point of interest in Old Town, so you go in there and see another moon-scorched. But this one's not hostile, and he just seems he wants you to meet the new mayor, who is horrifying. You can talk to him and tiptoe around his dialogue and try to keep him happy, and he'll give you the second key, free of charge. Remember this guy's location. Once you have both keys, you can head north towards the city. There's several other ways to get to the city, like shooting the lock with a shotgun, using a specific spell in the forest, going through the sewers if you're strong enough to break the lock, etc., etc. This is the normal way, however, and the way you're kind of like supposed to do it. You can keep going north from here, and if you're on day 2, you can see someone die as soon as you enter the city, but I got here on day 1, and this is my playthrough, so we're not going to talk about that. Travel a little further into the city and find some police officers. They're distorted beyond belief. Their heads are spinning, and they have 3 arms. And if you don't beat them while they're down, they will always get back up. If you keep going north, you'll see a familiar face. It's a man in a purple cat mask. He's beating a bag and it's screaming. It's Pocket Cat. I know he's like a really bad person, but seeing him here was like seeing an old friend for me. An old child murdering friend. He'll basically tell you hi and discuss philosophy with you for a minute. He'll say he got distracted and tell you to go to the church to get to the tower. Also trade you some really good stuff for other Termina contestants' heads. There's a lot of stuff telling you to just kill these people. Well, if it can be helped, I'd rather not. Here, we are not going to follow Pocket Cat's advice, and we're going to go straight to the left from the church instead. Going northwest past some garages, which, by the way, do not stop and loiter around here. If you do, you might deal with an enemy that I'd rather not show. That ended several of my playthroughs by just soft-locking me out of this area. Keep going north past the dogs that poop themselves, yes, really, and into the shopping districts. There's some bell ringing here people that'll summon police officers, so I just avoid them. And then go west till you find a staircase down to a speakeasy. This place will be your new home, pretty much. and you're going to be coming back here a lot. From here, you can go in pretty much any order you want and explore the city at will. You'll find some stores with some supplies, some entrances to the sewers, this weird church obelisk that seemingly does nothing and has no lore whatsoever associated with it. So that's pretty weird. But your main goal here is to find 3 statues. If you went to the church first, it would tell you that and mark them on your map, but you would have to backtrack a lot. So I'm just going to skip right to it, and we're going to go find those 3 statues. The easiest one is in the orphanage. It's just right here. You keep going north past these jobs. Very funny name and the most oppressive and disturbing atmosphere in any game I've ever played. So I appreciate he decided to name this thing that. And basically you're going to want to keep going north until you find the orphanage. You walk in and are greeted with an abundance of supplies. However, there's moon-scorched orphans here, as well as ghosts that can't be killed with anything other than otherworldly magic or your bare hands for some reason. I think this is a bug.
That's a bug! That's a bug! That is a bug!
But you can't do much here other than try to find a way through the door, which you can't unless you're really strong or have a shit ton of party members. The only thing you can do here is purposely fall for a trap and be sent to the basement. There's bad things down here, and you want to get out as soon as possible. Keep going north in the basement until you get a staircase and go up. You can find some more supplies, but you really want to go into the courtyard. Here, there's a shed, where if you open it, you have another portal to Rare's flipped world. Once in here, it looks like World War I trenches, and instead of the normal wooden decor in the flipped realms. You have to either fight, or run your way past a few rontails. And you'll find a statue. The Statue of Hunger. From here, just backtrack and leave the flipped world. And then, once again, just leave the orphanage. You can go wherever you want again, however, I just went back to the speakeasy and saved. The second statue is back where those poop dogs were. There's going to be a distinctly white door in this room that you need to enter. Everything here is covered in a white substance. You walk in and the door immediately locks behind you. You have to walk straight and take the keys at the front desk, obviously. This will unlock almost every room in this apartment building. Go downstairs and you'll find this bloody washing machine with a 6-digit code, which on my first playthrough, I tried to brute force for like 30 minutes. I got nowhere and I had to take a shower because I got so angry. The key here is to go to the top floor and find some creaky floorboards, push a huge bull statue over them, and break into the room below. Another party member can be picked up here, and I did actually, making things considerably easier. In this room, you could find this weird, strange symbol that you can kind of find all around town, as well as a diary of a madman, which is a great Ozzy Osbourne song, by the way. In this diary, it will read out to you a puzzle. He'll describe murder victims that he killed in order, and he's describing what's in their rooms when he killed them. You want to take the corresponding apartment number, and you want to use them all in order to open the 6-digit passcode in the washer. I cannot tell you how long this took me on my first playthrough to figure out. And it's completely different every single time, so you're going to have to do it on your own. Hello, neighbor. Go back downstairs and enter the passcode and crawl into the washing machine. You'll come out on the other side and it'll be another one of Rare's flipped realms. This place is probably the hardest area to navigate in the game for me. There is a shit ton of enemies, and avoiding them can be quite the feat, and fighting them all is not on the table. And if you come here really late, there is a moon-scorched here that'll beat the shit out of you. Climb to the top of the apartments and enter the middle gate. There's a little secret passage to the right here. You can jump down to the floor into one of the locked cells. And here there'll be a second statue. The Fellatio statue. Yes, I'm serious. Just come back the way you came, and then out of the now unlocked apartments. You can leave and once again go wherever you want. I decided to head back to the speakeasy and rest. Well, the boxer died, I guess, while I was in the apartment somewhere else in the city off screen. 12. Now that I have 3 people in my party, I wanted to go teach that mayor a lesson from the beginning of the game. I went back and I fought him. He's clearly insane and would be better off if I just put him out of his misery. 11. Huh. He was that chef from the beginning of the game, I guess, who got moon-scorched. Well, if the tournament is true, then there's only 11 of us left. Now that that's taken care of, we're going to go to the church on the east side of town. Getting there was a little hard for me and took me until the 3rd day's evening, in which the sleep beforehand the Bremen lieutenant died off screen. 10. Going into the church shows you these 3 pedestals, one for each statue. An obvious puzzle. Going through the church, you will notice a locked door, one you can't beat down. For this, you have to find a map and some bolt cutters. On the map, you'll find all the places where the statues are, but we already talked about that. And this note will show you where the bolt cutters are. Take them and go upstairs twice until you're in the church's rafters. Be careful, there's some pillar men up here. No, not that kind. Once you get past them, you can break this chandelier and make it fall into the basement of the church. Down here, you have to solve some puzzles to grab the final statue. After you grab the statue, you're gonna have to find a way out of this area, which once again took me a very long time. But this guy here just has the keys, which usually there's not many dead bodies with the keys, so it took me so long to find this. Also down here, there's a rare symbol, allowing you to get to the flipped world. Here you can find Dysmorphia, a moon-scorched of the goth girl from earlier. Quite the challenge, actually, but you can take her down pretty easy if you take out her arms first. 9. Put all the statues on the pedestals and access the secret passageway to the tower. Going through, you'll meet a wolf in a bone mask, who admittedly looks really cool rather than disturbing. You can end this fight pretty easily though by just cutting off one of his arms, causing him to apologize and drop a spear for you. A really good one too. I kept it till the end game. Next, you continue, but before you get to the tower, you have a small house you can save in. Now, you might think you can sleep, get to the night of the 3rd day, and get to the tower and just win. However, I had 3, maybe 4 attempts, all at least 5 hours or so in, and no matter what, you can't do this. You have to be the last one standing. And that includes your party. Interacting with the tower when you're not the last person, except for zombies or blood golems, will immediately turn everyone in your party into a moon-scorched, which you do not want to fight all at once. You know what this means, right? Well, if it has to be someone, why shouldn't it be me that's the winner? Everyone here is equal, and I'm going to at least try to win. I'm sure everyone else will too. Waiting till the night of day 3 is a really bad idea. If you do, every single contestant that is not you and not dead will become moon-scorched, meaning you'll have to go on a solo mission to kill all of them. This part is one of my favorite parts of the game, and I think it is the coolest and most interesting and well-written or well-drawn part of the game. Every moon-scorched is a warped version of the contestants and their mental trauma or their fear on display on their body. Levi, the soldier and who I was playing through in this playthrough, becomes the weeping scope. We talked about his PTSD in the war earlier and how he cries and shoots. Marina, the occultist, will become the cocoon. Marina has some problems with her father, and in the moon-scorched form, she is quite literally carrying the sins of her father on her back. Dan, the doctor, will become a doppelganger of Pocket Cat for some reason. I don't really know why this one happens, other than he doesn't know what else to do, I guess. Abella, the mechanic, will turn into Shognar? I don't know how to pronounce this. This one doesn't have a lore reason I can think of, other than... and I'm going to reach for straws here. Shognar looks very muscular, and elephants can carry a lot of stuff on their back. So maybe she feels like she's carrying everyone's burdens, or maybe she's just scared of elephants. I don't know. I really don't understand this one. Osa, the wizard, becomes the mastermind, perhaps because he feels closer to the gods than everyone else, and he has to be the smart one here. Olivia becomes the mechanical dance. Now, this is my favorite one. Olivia is in a wheelchair in the normal game, and through her backstory, you can see this bothers her. Her sister excels in everything, and she has to work really hard to do anything. In this moon-scorched form, she appears to have been fused to the wheelchair. Asking what happened to her in combat prompts her to say, "I've always been this way." Perhaps this monster made of metal is just how she's always felt. Marco the Boxer becomes the Giant. In this form, he is huge and a strong monster, choking a smaller person. This is just headcanon, but perhaps this stoic, outward facade is choking his actual personality. Deep down, he's a kind guy, and you can see that through his playthrough. Or it could be a representation of his sister, who he caused nothing but trouble for, getting choked by his outward appearance and personality. Karen the journalist is next. She becomes the Valkyrie, and this one we don't have to speculate much on. Right before she turns into a moon-scorched, she says that war journalists sometimes are seen as vultures, profiting off the dead soldiers. But she sees them as Valkyries, carrying the hopes and dreams and honoring the fallen, just like a Valkyrie. The goth girl Samari becomes dysmorphia, which we already touched on a bit earlier, but the word dysmorphia is kind of a mental condition, where you feel flawed and imperfect in some way. Samari will also say how beautiful and radiant she is when she's moon-scorched. She's more than likely has a problem with her normal appearance, and this is how she thinks she should be, which is weird. Henrik the chef becomes the mayor that we talked about earlier, who is seemingly sane. Henrik always hesitated and has really not gone for anything. He's a fence sitter. He's neutral in a really bad way, to a point of hesitation. Tanaka, the businessman, becomes Judgment. He appears to have glass sticking out of him, and he'll say he broke the glass ceiling finally from working so hard to appease his father. The glass ceiling is hurting him in turn, showing how he worked so hard to his own detriment. Finally, the mobster Caligura, this one's simple. He feels like a disgusting and horrible person deep down, and his outward appearance reflects this. Easy. The people I didn't mention don't have a Moonscorched form will always die before Night 3. That being Pav, the Lieutenant, and August, the mustachioed gentleman. Fighting one of them is quite a feat. However, be too passive and you may have to fight possibly even 11 of them. Each one is a very difficult boss. In my pro gamerness, I cannot defeat a single one of them solo, on my even best save data. I'm sure if I took the time and actually put real effort into building my character, and only my character to be as strong as possible, I'm sure I could do it. That means we have to kill some people while they're still in their right mind, which is probably not morally correct, but as we've established in my first Fear and Hunger video, there's no such thing as morality. There is no absolute truth. So as awful as it feels to my personal moral code, we need to murder some people to get out of Termina. The first one I went to kill was Osa, as he is one of the most dangerous non-Moonscorched enemies, so I just wanted to get him out of the way first. I found him pretending to be a priest in a confessional. When he came out, I got lucky and I got a headshot straight away, killing him instantly, to the dismay of my party. 8. After this, I found Karen by the lake, about to turn. She was talking about the Valkyries like I mentioned earlier, and once again, I killed her, to the dismay of my party. 7. I wanted to leave Olivia for last, so I went to go kill the monster, because I forgot about killing the mobster earlier, and he already turned. Getting there, the doctor took a fatal hit on accident as well. 5. This battle is quite hard. He poisons you every turn, and depending on how many hands he has left, he hits you with every single one. He also vomits, which I have a really bad fear of, and even in games, it makes me, like, super uncomfortable. So I have a personal gripe with this one. 4. During this battle, I also got my other 2 party members killed, thankfully, so I wouldn't have to kill them myself later. 3, 2, and that just leaves one other person. Listen. Listen. I don't feel good about this one. I don't like that I had to kill the girl in the wheelchair, but, like, why shouldn't I be the one that lives? I legit cannot 1v1 her Moonscorched in my current state, and I feel really bad about this. I really do. But, like... Well, now going back to the house right before the tower, the last save is there. Finally, I head to the tower. I went to the tower, and it tells me that there's this horrible feeling in my gut whenever I go near it. My blood runs cold, and I feel nauseous. If you go to the door of the tower, it says you feel euphoric once you touch it and you're the last one left. Once you go in, it raises to the top. Perkle is waiting for you. He says, "Congratulations, you're the last one standing." But something's wrong. Perkle said this festival was kind of pointless. Or, at least it wasn't for what we originally thought. Originally, this was for the moon god Rare. But apparently he left this world a long time ago. Now Perkle himself uses this festival for his own goals. He wants to find people who are bloodthirsty enough to serve his new god, the Sulphur God. There have been hints through the playthrough of the entire game about this, but you'll have to find those on your own. Either way, he said I wasn't bloodthirsty enough, so he'll just let me go. But only if I kill him. This fight is absurdly hard. Way hard for just one person in your party. Trust me, I've tried several times. In several playthroughs. But if you use some sort of cheap tricks and cheese it, you can win. What I did was I got some skills and I got Necromancy and Blood Golem. Now I can win. This fight, by the way, kinda has a banger music track instead of like a normal horrifying one. After which Perkle, beaten, battered, tells you he's coming. Then the moon falls. This fight is also a pain in the ass, but you just gotta suffer through it. Attack his main body as much as you can, because he'll just drain your mind with everything other than his main body. There you go. You beat him. You didn't kill Rare, of course, but he just leaves. You awake in the morning on the 4th day. This should be a great ending after everything, but it's almost bittersweet. After this horrible, feverish couple of days, nothing's changed. There's still war, fear, and hunger in the world. So, what was this all for? Well, the other two endings explain a little bit more, and I leave those to you. Like, what happens if you kill everyone while they're still human and are bloodthirsty enough? What was with that white mold apartment? What was that strange fleshy machine in that first bunker we went to? What was that goat at the woodsman's house? Who is the statue of in the secret passage of the church? If not So, that's it. Such a disturbingly empty ending for a disturbing game. Well, remember my last note of the first video? The whole point is to find a meaning in the suffering. I think that's why I like this game so much. It's such a bleak message, and it's up to you to find a meaning. So what will you do? What meaning can you find? Can you find the other two endings? Find out all the secrets? I'll leave that up to you. Now, once again, I'm going to go off script here for a minute. This one was even longer than the last one at 23 pages long. So, like I said, I really wasn't excited about playing this game. Someone in my comment section told me, hey, it's way better, it's more disturbing. I was like, yeah, whatever, dude. And I was wrong. This game is so much more fun. There is so much more replayability here. And there's just so many things that, like, you can just find out. There's things that I don't even know about in this game. I'm sure of it. Like, there's some stuff there are entire YouTube channels dedicated to finding secrets of this game. And I don't think it's even fully out. And there's some stuff in this game that isn't even fully done. I believe he's adding more characters to play, like the lieutenant and the mobster, I believe, will be playable at some point. So there'll be whole 2 other stories. And I gotta say, seeing how he escalated this, it's amazing. And I really cannot wait for another Fear and Hunger if he makes one. But with the success that he's found recently in the past year, where this game has just all of a sudden blown up, I think he'd be crazy not to make a 3rd one. And this one, I mean, this one's just way better than the first one, and the first one's amazing. This is the best RPG Maker game I've ever played. I don't know about the best RPG ever made, but it's really fucking good. Like I said in the last video, most RPG Maker games don't have combat, and if they do, it's literally run or die. And this one actually has like a really fun and meaningful combat system. And it has that horrifying story. I don't know. I gotta say, I love Fear and Hunger 2. And this is one of my favorite games now. Who knows if it'll stay that way, but for now, I love this game. And I hope you do too. So, this is my first video on my second channel as well, if you're watching it there. And I don't know if I'll make... And I don't know what kind of other videos I'll make here. This channel will be for like my video essays. And if you have another horror game that you think is just as disturbing or even more disturbing than Fear and Hunger, please tell me about it. And if I get hooked on it and I get really passionate about it like I did with these two, who knows, I might make a video on it. Anyway, that's about it. I appreciate everybody that stayed for this whole thing, and I love all of you. Thank you. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.